Good morning. My name is May Donkin. I'm a mum and I'm also a mental health social worker, and I have a strong interest in mental health education for the community. Thank you for inviting me, Chantel, to talk about dealing with uncertainty, which we've experienced a lot of lately. So Chantel, I'm curious from your point of view, why was this topic chosen as part of this series about mental health and wellbeing? Why is it so important?
Well, with the pandemic at the moment, there is so much uncertainty, and uncertainty of our jobs, of being unwell, not being able to go to work, and then there's financial stress, and people, I've noticed, are dealing with different emotions, whether it be fear or worry or anxiety, and I just thought this was a really important topic, because it will help people to understand why we feel the way we do.
True, and like you said, there definitely has been a lot of uncertainty, particularly around the pandemic. I think we're programmed to want to know what's happening. We want certainty in our life, but we know that uncertainty is part of life, and it's just something that we have to manage from time to time. But when we get so much of it, it does get a bit overwhelming. So it's really important that you've raised these issues about how people are feeling, whether they're feeling anxious or a bit out of control or worried. These are all normal feelings, but we might be able to talk about some strategies that help people around how to manage these emotions and identify what it is that they can control in this situation and what is it that they can't really control, and just manage that. Uncertainty it can have quite difficult psychological impacts on people. So research has shown that the fear of losing a job is actually more stressful than losing the job itself. So just wondering, is this going to happen? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have it? That is way more stressful than the actual losing of job itself. So, and during the pandemic, before the pandemic started, I often heard people say, just when are we going to get new cases coming in? What's going to happen when we get COVID? And in a way, people were saying so much easier when we just have it, and then we know what we're dealing with. So there's the uncertainty creates that anxiety and not knowing what's going to happen. And the reason for that is that people might catastrophize the situation. They might think of the worst case scenarios of what will happen, and just ruminate on that. Just think about it over and over again, and that's when it becomes really unhealthy obsession. So I've just done a bit of research and just come up with a few tips that might help people avoid that anxiety and rumination, get out of that trap of rumination about what's going to happen. So the first thing is don't resist. Don't resist these emotions that you're having. We are living in challenging times, but resisting it or avoiding it is not going to help. The alternative is that we can just practice acceptance. Acceptance isn't saying that it's okay, everything's good, everything's fine. It's accepting that, okay, I'm feeling a bit anxious about it, and that's okay, that's normal. So, and practicing quite a bit of self-acceptance, self-compassion. These are difficult times, and we just need to say, you know what, I'm going to cut myself some slack, I'm going to be kind to myself. It is okay to be a bit worried, it is okay to be a bit anxious. It is normal. It is what it is. Everyone's in it together. We're all in this together, okay? A really good acronym for practicing self-compassion and nurturing is RAIN, as in R-A-I-N. R stands for recognise. So you might say, I recognise that I'm feeling worried or anxious. A, it stands for allowing for that experience to be. So you might say, well, where am I feeling it? Is it in my chest? Or is it in my stomach? Just allow for it to be there. Stop fighting it. It is what it is. I'm just going to allow for it there. I stands for investigate with kindness. So you might say, why am I feeling this way? Am I worried that, like you said, am I going to get COVID and lose my job or not be able to look after my family? Would my business go down because of COVID? What are the reasons I'm feeling this anxiety? Am I worried about my health? Will I, get long COVID? Would I not recover? So start thinking and investigate that with kindness. And as you do the investigation, you might be able to come up with some simple solutions through that process. You might say, well, maybe I could look at some financial assistance. Maybe I could look at looking after my health a little bit better because this is what's causing my anxiety and worry. And the N in RAIN stands for nurture. So nurture with self-compassion and self-care. The second one is invest in yourself. So there's a lot of things we can't control that's outside our control. There's politics, there's the climate. One of the things that we can control is ourselves. Around the times of uncertainty, it's actually a really good time to start looking at your own self-development and your self-growth. So you might say, look, if I'm anxious, why don't I just go and speak to a counsellor, get some psychological strategies to deal with this? Why don't I read some books or watch some YouTube videos or TED Talks about this topic to increase my knowledge?
Yeah.
And there's so much knowledge out there, isn't there? Like, there's no end of knowledge that we can have access for free at the moment.
Absolutely.
You can invest in yourself. You can read more books. You could do a course that you always wanted to do. You could look after your health, start that fitness program that you wanted to, so that you are ready physically, mentally, emotionally. You're stronger to handle whatever comes your way. Would you agree with that,
absolutely.
Chantel?
Yeah, for sure.
So during these times, we kind of need comfort as well, and it's only human to want comfort. So accept that you need that comfort when you're feeling anxious or worried about the future. But find something that is healthy. We all have that tendency. When I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, what I want to do is stay at home, watch Netflix and eat chocolate.
Yes.
And that's great occasionally, but I know at the end of the day that's not going to help me. So when I'm having a mental health day or a nurturing day, I can do a little bit of that, but I know there's other things that help me better. If I go for a walk with a friend, go outside and get some sunshine, get my diary out and just write down how I'm feeling. For me, exercise is very nurturing. Yoga is very nurturing. Eating healthy food is nurturing. So I know that I'm looking after myself, nurturing myself, but it's things that aren't going to make me tired or sick or drained.
Yeah.
And one of them is probably social media. I'm like so many other people. I can sit there for hours and forget how much time I've been spending on social media, scrolling. But I know at the end of it, that's actually not going to nurture me or make me feel better. So think about things that are what we call the healthy comfort items. So, and they don't have to be expensive or difficult to get hold of. So what are some healthy comfort items that you like to, that are your go-to as a busy mum and, someone who works hard?
I love the beach.
Yep.
Just to walk on the beach and walk with my dog. I'm walking the dogs, exercising the dog. I'm exercising myself. And I'm doing a little bit of mindfulness because I'm looking at the ocean. For me, that's really a really nurturing time.
Yeah.
Love the beach. It's beautiful to connect to nature, and the beach also has so many aspects to it. So the sand and the water and the sky and everything. So that's my go-to.
That's your comfort, yeah. And we're so lucky to have that available to us. So
Our doorstep.
yeah, for me it's like a nice cup of coffee and a good book sometimes, playing with my pets.
Yeah. Simple, just simplicity.
Yeah. And sometimes, you can getting a massage or getting your hair done, getting your nails. These are really important things that nurture yourself, that make you feel good.
That's right.
Yeah. So number 4 is don't believe everything you think. What that means is that we can get into very unhelpful thinking patterns. So earlier I mentioned catastrophizing. We start thinking of the worst possible scenario. Is we might hear the news that COVID's spreading, so you immediately think, I'm going to get COVID, my family's going to get COVID, our business is going to go down, I won't be able to work, I'll get long COVID. And it's not really helpful. So catastrophizing makes us feel anxious, and one way to address that is to stop and say, well, what evidence do I have that this is going to happen? And you might say, yeah, this is the evidence. But is it possible that it's not going to happen as well? Is it possible that, there's other people who've recovered from COVID, people get COVID, the businesses have recovered as well. We might go through a tough patch. So it's actually not helpful to marinate yourself in these very catastrophic sort of thoughts. It doesn't solve the situation anyway, does it? Part of that is also being careful about what you are putting in your brain from the media. We could absorb ourselves in news 24/7. We've got access to news all the time. And I know I've been guilty of that when I'm just constantly checking news apps and media feeds when something's happening. And I know it's actually not helping me, it just feeds that anxiety. So it's good to be informed about what's happening in the world, what's happening around us, but to immerse yourself in all these bad news, it just feeds the anxiety, and it just gives you a one-sided view of how life is, because news only presents negative things or sensational things. They don't have a balanced view of what's really going on in the world. Paying attention is another one. So by that, I mean is mindfulness and being in the moment. When we are worried about uncertainty, we're not living in the moment, are we? We're thinking about future. We worry about the past, or we think about the future. And while we're doing that, we're not enjoying what we have here and now. We're not having a rich, full and meaningful experience here and right now. So by paying attention is just practicing mindfulness. And what Chantel mentioned earlier, mindfulness doesn't have to be a long meditation session. It could be going to the beach, like you said, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of how you're feeling. It could be just focusing on your breath for a few minutes. It's being present. When you're talking to your friends, you're putting away your phone and listening to them. When you are doing a task, you're just focusing on that task and not trying to multitask. Yeah. So anything else that you wanted to add to that, Chantel, around mindfulness, what it means for you?
I think you are spot on when you're saying, just doing one task, not kind of multitasking, because we try to be really productive by doing lots of things at once, but then actually we miss things or we don't do things properly, and we're actually, in our minds rather than actually focusing. So I think that's a really, really important point there, is just to do one thing at a time, do it well, do it mindfully, so that, you feel good about having completed it and completed it well.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing we can do is take responsibility for what's happening in our own life and not give in to hopelessness or keep looking for other people to come and rescue us. Sometimes people get into hopeless situations and they want someone to come and help them out of that situation, or what they call underfunctioning in anxiety. Other times people become over-functioners, where they just do too much and they become very active. They want to do everything. They want to control everything, and that's not helpful either. So it's finding that balance in between, where you identify what are the things that I have absolutely no control over. It could be, the media, environment, the election coming up. What are the things that I do have control over? It could be my personal life, it could be my health and well-being, my family, my work. These are the things that I can control. I can contribute financially to causes that are important to me. I can be a good community member. I can contribute to the community. So focusing on things that you can control. And preparing yourself as much as you can. So, for example, with COVID coming, some people looked after their health and well-being. They try to get, we know that things like getting sleep and exercise, eating well, these all help you, as well as all the other advice that we get on public health around hand washing, vaccination, all these other advice that we have. So we know these are the things that we can do to empower us to deal with whatever's coming in the way. And just saying, look, there's other things that are happening, but I can't control that. There's nothing I can do about that. That's what it means, I suppose, to not wait for other people to come and rescue you, and you take control of the situation yourself. And then finally, which this one I really like, I think it resonates with me, is finding meaning in all the chaos. So rather than seeing uncertainty as a negative thing, see it as an opportunity to grow as a person. These are challenging times for us, but it's through challenges and some difficulties that we actually grow as people. It expands us. It helps us become more resilient. We realise that, look, we have more strength than we thought that we did. So see this as part of your growth as a human being, and reframe your thinking around uncertainty being a really bad thing. It could be an opportunity to be innovative. For example, some businesses, so when at the start of the pandemic they said, oh, well, we have to shut down, we can't operate anymore, we can't do face-to-face, whereas the businesses that have thrived are the ones that said, oh, how can we do things differently now? Let's do online services to people, let's do delivery to people's houses. And these are the businesses that have thrived because they've become more innovative through that process. It's also an opportunity to try new things and face the fear of failure and realise it's okay if you fail or make mistakes, but we just go in there and try new things. And through this pandemic, people have tried a lot of new things that we wouldn't have tried before. Working remotely has been one of those things. People have realised that, yes, we can actually become more flexible with working and in the way that we work, in the way that we deliver services to people. So it is an opportunity for us to grow as well. Absolutely. If you look at it that way. So I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to talk about uncertainty. Is there anything you wanted to add, or any questions you wanted to ask, or comments that you wanted to make?
I think you've covered the topic well. I think it's been really helpful, and I'm sure our viewers will think that it's very helpful, and they'll have some really good tips on how to manage our emotions and things that we don't feel very comfortable with during these uncertain times. So thank you so much for coming in and presenting on this topic. Thank you very much, May.
Thank you, Chantel. Thank you.